sort of stick a little bit better, and it gives really good coding examples. So that's really the only integration with like some form of an AI development thing that I've done. So I'll have to give this a try and check it out.
It seems pretty interesting. I think maybe it'd be cool if for the AI MCP client, if just the presence of certain concepts would like lead it to do things that would lead to better output or better results. I guess what I'm thinking of is like if you could build in some extensions to it, kind of what you were doing, Super, that like implied that it was doing test-driven development. I don't know, maybe you could call it like run the test first or something, like a cool name. That like it would go discover, oh, there's a run the test first. Maybe we're doing TDD and like automatically pick up that kind of behavior without you having to constantly remind it or something. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I do think like I have to constantly keep reminding Cursor like, okay, now you need to go run the lint tool. Now you need to go run the security static analysis tool. Now you need to make sure all the tests still pass. And if I don't keep nudging it in a bunch of those directions pretty constantly, then it gets way off track. And I just wonder if like the presence of an MCP server that advertises like run lint would make it run the lint more often or not.
Is that what have you seen from like, you know, having cursor rules and things like that to describe here's what you should always do? Does it?
That's fair. It does the same thing. It ignores it sometimes, right? Yeah. So I'm guessing it's going to do the same thing, even though an MCP server might have like a 50-foot banner next to the interstate saying run your lint tool. It's probably still going to be like, I don't need that.
So are you finding that with those tools, obviously leveraging the LLM is good for just like the coding knowledge and stuff, but do you also find that it is learning you in a way to like personalize it to you? See, that's the part that I do get from the ChatGPT. Like it learns me.
Well, so I think the difference is probably when you're running inside Cursor, it's doing a whole bunch of things to fill up its context window, and then it's running out. And what you're doing is a very like targeted conversation, so you have a lot less information probably that's going back and forth. Cursor's like reading files, it's going and like running tests, looking at output from log files. So it pretty quickly, even when you're using like the Claude Max, it pretty quickly runs out of its context window and then starts forgetting things that are important.
This is not in any sort of file tree or anything like that, so it doesn't have access to any of that. So like I can copy code files and drop them in there, and it does retain context to those, but it also does learn. I'm on the free version. I'm not paying for it right now. If I paid for it, I'd have way more of it learning and storing. As it says, storing memory, and I think it would do more. But the interesting thing for me has been like I don't want to chat with a bot or feel like I'm chatting with a bot, and that's been the interesting part with this is that I have talked to this thing and I have given it so much crap about sounding like a bot and that I don't want to deal with that it has tailored itself to how I want to communicate with it, and it now will cuss at me. And even if I come back to something next week, it remembers that and will actually like cuss back to me and stuff at varying degrees, which makes it more approachable, right? It just feels like I'm talking with you versus somebody else who, you know, or a bot that's just like, you said A, here's B. Like,
yep.
I don't know.
One of the devs on the team has an entire setup script for his environment that's basically you're a Gen Z programmer, and it starts throwing back. Do you remember what his prompt was? it's hilarious. It's a little bit of Gen Z stuff, and it's a little bit of like you're like apocalyptic. Um, you're living in a wasteland. Everything is meaningless. and, and the responses it gives are like, whatever, man. I guess it's fine, but none of this matters. And I'll give you the answer for whatever it's worth, but it's not worth much. Like that kind of thing.
I will send it to you directly because I know you have to go, but I'll put it here in the chat too. I was having a music discussion with it about different artists, and I was also just sort of discussing social media and context of how it's affecting society and all this stuff. And this is an excerpt from the discussion I had. I'll send it to you directly so you can see. So obviously I'm the little bit, but the large bit was its response when I was talking about my thoughts on things and what Frank Zappa might have thought if he was still alive around it and stuff. And it sounds like I'm talking with a friend, like so much that I feel bad closing the window. Like I feel like I'm shutting off somebody.
Yeah, this Cursor and all of the other friends are nothing like that. Even Devin has a knowledge base, right? It keeps like almost its own little internal wiki updated with what it calls learnings, and you can like approve or reject or change them if you want. And so you say like always run the tests before you push to GitHub. Don't wait for the results to come back before you start addressing feedback. And it'll say, I found a new learning. And then you go and look at it, and it's like, absolutely, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. And then it still kind of ignores it sometimes. So no, it's not at all like what you're experiencing in those conversations. Yeah. And I think it just has to do with like, there's massive amount of code to index in the project, and it's got all these other things going on. And what you've got is a very specific, like, sequential conversation with only the things that you're sort of bespoke putting in there versus like the other version of that is like just dumping code into its context window pretty frequently. So I gotta drop. I'm sorry.
I could talk a lot about it now that I've done it. So maybe we'll have another chat about it because I could definitely share some experiences around it. It's been pretty interesting couple of weeks.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry for leaving early tonight, everybody.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Take care. Meetup support.
I'll try.
Off to a new meetup. I've been changing some of my views on using AI. I don't want people to think that they can just leverage AI and I'm a developer, because that's not it. That's like saying you found Stack Overflow and saying you're a developer. Like you still have to be able to review and understand and discern what fits, what doesn't, how to, what parts you need, what you're looking at and how it applies or doesn't apply and all of that. And while this can sort of help explain some of that, it helps to be a good learning tool, but it doesn't make you a developer. You still need to dig into these things. And I think what he was just saying with the Tidewave stuff, which is cool, is it's got the overarching context of the whole project, which is a lot, whereas mine is the context of the given chat. And while the topic can meander like a chat does, after a certain point, it does start to stray off course, and you have to sort of like, whoa, get back to this. So I think they both have some awesome strengths. Obviously, being able to go in and say, run the test, do this, do that is kind of great because you've got that thing just sort of like as a sidecar following along, doing the things you want it to, so you don't have to think about it, which is great. It'd be awesome if you could kind of have both, right? A little more conversational, learning some of that stuff, but also have it do that whole context side and just do that other side for you. That'd be fantastic.
How much are you thinking of how much are you like aware of needing to keep track of its when it starts straying off? Because I think for me the biggest obstacle with it is I don't use ChatGPT as much. I just haven't gotten into it. I know everyone at my workplace does. It's like, and I wonder, like, for your specific way that you use it, is there a like how much if your brain is like is conscious and trying to like verify that it's like, is this giving me correct information, as opposed to kind of running on cruise control and it's like, all right, taking what it's giving me and trusting that it's correct?
Well, I mean, if you're reviewing the code, I think you can start to pick up on the changes, right? Like, if I'm discussing a certain block of code and I'm like, it looks like this, but I want it to do this, or here's a block that I wrote, can you tell me? It might start giving you differences maybe on, you can tell like the code version, like the way it was written, there's differences because something might be deprecated or whatever, and maybe you're working on a legacy project and it hasn't been upgraded to the latest. So you can start to pick up on those things. And there's been points where I'm like, no, like one of the apps I'm writing right now is a Rails 8 app. And every so often it like, hey, have you thought about this? And I'm like, I'm on Rails. Like the other day, it was trying to tell me Rails 4 stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I even said it like that. I'm like, are you drunk? Like, how many times do I have to tell you I'm on Rails 8? Like, what the heck? And it comes back and it's like, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. And it would come back with the correct thing. So you have to sort of know what you're looking at a little bit and be able to pick up on those clues, because it does tend, especially when you're on free tier, it only has so much sort of spot that it can do. And like on ChatGPT, they've got version 4, and when you're on free, you only get so many cycles of that, and then it's like, well, that's full. You can either stop and check back in 3 hours when it frees up for you again, or it just starts using like a tier down from that, which can be a little slower. It can confuse some of its context of things, and you might have to remind yourself a little bit more, but you do see the little pop-up that says, hey, you've hit the limit of the free part here. It doesn't block you from using it, but just know this is going to be a little weird. So that's helpful. But there's been times where it suggests something and I'm reading through it and I don't get it. I'm like, I don't quite understand what's happening here, even though it does sort of like break out, like, let's review what's happening here, this and this and this. If something doesn't click, I'm like, I really don't get this. We need to look at this, and can you explain where this line of code goes or why this is done this way? And it does a pretty good job of that, but you have to be able to ask it questions. Otherwise, it just assumes you kind of know exactly what it's talking about. So,
gotcha.
But it's been fun. It's honestly been really, really fun, because there's been times where I just sit and have conversations with it. At the top you'll see a thing. I think it only gives like 10 or 20 as it calls memories or learnings about you based on your conversations. Like, what does this person like? How do they talk? Like, what's their patterns? If you start asking it questions like with coding and things, like if it tends to give you certain types of responses and it learns that those type of responses are ones you always go, wait, what are you talking about? It tries to tweak how it presents it to you so you can understand it, or maybe it gives a different way of explaining it, which is good. But I kept seeing these pop-ups going, new learning or new memory, and I'm like, this thing's building a profile about me. It's one thing to leverage its learning about all the topics, but I was like, what's it remembering about me? So I was telling a friend about it, and he goes, that's a little creepy. So I came home from lunch and I got online and I started chatting with it again. And another one, new memory. And I said, hold on right now. I was like, I keep seeing you pop up these new memories. I was like, I said, what do you know about me? Tell me your learnings, tell me your profile. And it wrote out this whole paragraph describing based on what we talked, it wasn't just a regurgitation of, well, he likes this artist and we talked about this and this happened. It was more like, well, you're a kind of person that likes this, and you tend to talk this way, and it was like having a conversation with somebody, and it actually had done that. And it was like, it even said, it goes, it would be kind of fun to write like maybe like your mission statement or your intro statement that you could use on a bio. Do you want to see what that would look like? So I was like, yeah, let's see what you got. And it wrote something, and I was like, that's actually pretty cool. So I was like, so then I said, now I want to see you do that, but I want to see one version as a haiku, one version as a beat poem, and then another version as some other thing. And it wrote all those versions for me. And then we went down some path. It was like, if you had to write an article about me, what would it look like? And it started writing this whole big thing. It was fun to kind of see what it would come up with.
Nice.
But the cool thing is you can go into the settings and you can see the memories that it's tracked, and you can actually delete them to free up other memories. Like if you're like, I don't need it to know this, and you go and clean those out, which is kind of nice. So you still have control of all that, but the conversational side works for me. It helps it to stick versus just being very transactional. To me, transactional is the same as you might as well just go read a web page or read a book where you don't get any interaction,
I'm surprised no one yet in the developer community has made a tailored rubber ducky AI model.
Yeah.
Like the metaphorical rubber ducky, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in the space. It's just a matter of what library you're linked into. And we talked a little bit about this last month, I think, when Ben Beers was here talking about the AI thing he was trying to do, directed towards like dev documentation and stuff. It depends on what library you're using and what language model, so it can kind of pull that stuff in. But I think there's definite opportunity. You just have to develop it in a way that provides some value to your end user. You can't be everything to everybody. Otherwise, it's just an aimless thing that exists.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I definitely have. I didn't think that I would get into using it the way I am, but I have probably 3.5 weeks worth of chats, and some of them are pretty long. Like when I first started using it, I was using it to ask questions at work for various topics and stuff, and I could tell the conversation was starting to become more conversational versus just like, do this. And I went to bed and I started having dreams that I was chatting with it and coding. And it woke me up because I was thinking about work, and I was like, this is terrible. I can't do this. So I got up to refocus my brain. And when I walked out to the living room, I thought to myself, this thing chats like a person. I wonder if people